guys, it's Gamer Ahmer here. So Sega has finally announced the last games that will be included on the Sega Genesis Mini that's due to release on September 19th, 2019. So today I'm going to go ahead and talk about all of the games that are included on the Sega Genesis Mini and everything that you need to know about it for when it releases. So let's go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and recap, the Sega Genesis Mini will release on September 19th, 2019, and of course you can already pre-order it at Amazon, Best Buy, GameStop, Walmart, and soon to be some other retailers. So I would definitely pick one of these up after the last 10 games that have been announced for it. So I'm really looking forward to this console as it has some great titles on it. Of course, it will have a Gen 1 model of the Sega Genesis, which is the best looking one in my opinion, and it looks really sweet. So it'll be a scaled down version of that console. It will also come with 2 controllers that you can go ahead and use. Now of course those are the 3-button controllers, so this classic Sega Genesis controller right here, and you can go ahead and order some of the 6-button controllers from Retrobit. So that is definitely a great addition to this console right here. It will include all of the cables that you need to hook it up to your modern day television. And of course, they announced 40 games for this system, but they went ahead and surprised us with 2 extras. So we'll go ahead and check out those. So of course, they announced Virtua Fighter 2, which is a great fighting game on the Sega systems. Now, I always love playing that arcade style game in the arcades, and I really enjoy the Virtua Fighter series, as it's definitely a great and fun game. So I'm really looking forward to that one when it comes out. And then they announced Road Rash 2, which is another great game. Kind of has those combat style fighting moves in it as you're on a motorcycle cruising around, and you go ahead and kick and punch at other characters who are riding on the motorcycles next to you. So that one is definitely an iconic game, and I loved playing it on the Genesis growing up. It definitely had a beat 'em up style to it, and it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed playing that game on this system. So that is another great staple for the Sega Genesis Mini. And then they went ahead and announced Light Crusader, which is definitely a fun and interesting action-adventure game for the Sega Genesis. And it definitely has some pretty interesting elements in the game, such as role-playing, puzzle-solving, platforming, even spellcasting, as you have different elements of magic, and you even sling around a sword. So this is definitely a pretty neat and interesting title to add to this Sega Genesis Mini. They have announced Elysia Dragoon, which is a pretty sweet platform game, and just looking at some of the gameplay, this game looks really amazing, and I can't believe I haven't heard of it. So you have this female character, which is great in and of itself, and you run around beating up these evil forces to go ahead and avenge your father. So that is definitely a great premise of the game. And the best part is that as this character, you shoot lightning from your hands. So this is definitely a pretty interesting game, and she even controls these creatures, or monsters as you call them, to go ahead and help her along with her quest. So this definitely looks like a pretty well-packed game, and I'm really excited to try it out. And then of course, another interesting title on the Sega Genesis, we have Kid Chameleon. So pretty much you have this virtual reality game that goes ahead and captures some people, so he has to go ahead and rescue and play this game. So it's definitely a pretty neat spin on this idea of virtual reality and gameplay within this game. So that is another great fun title that you can play on the Sega Genesis Mini. And then they announced Monster World 4, where if you haven't played this game, this is your chance to play it. So it's another pretty sweet action-adventure platforming and RPG title where you can go ahead and battle monsters. So it's just another great one in the series. And then they announced some games which I actually have in my collection. So they announced this Columns game for the Sega Genesis Mini, which is a great puzzle style game that definitely reminds me of Tetris in its own way. It's one of those great games where you have to match up the different colors. Game favored by Middle Eastern merchants. In this mesmerizing pastime, tinker with your riches to align glittering jewels across, down, or diagonally. As you line up colors, the gems vanish and more sparklers drop from above. The challenge increases as the jewels fall more rapidly. You must quickly align them before the columns reach the top. So this was definitely a fun game back in the day. And of course they modified this style game on various systems and even various phone applications. So that is definitely a great title. And then we have this pretty awesome game. We have Strider that was announced. Now this one is definitely a great game. It says take on all the explosive action of the arcade hit. Your Strider, a crunching hulk of muscle with a grappling hook and laser sword. You're in a future land of backward time and its evil masters taunting you with defeat. Can you survive 8 mega of incredible danger? Hang glide into the citadel, then clang your hook into metal to stiff arm up to safety. Stay alive by slashing armies, winged robots, and prehistoric monsters into shuddering heaps. So this is definitely a pretty sweet battle style game, and this is definitely a great addition to the Sega Genesis Mini. And then of course they announced Eternal Champions. Now I couldn't think of a Sega Genesis Mini without this game, as this is definitely a great beat 'em up style game. It says prepare for the ultimate game. 9 huge warriors battle for the right to face the Eternal Champion and win the supreme prize, the life that fate stole. Kick, punch, and smash through friends and foes alike in the punishing 32-player tournament. So this is definitely a pretty neat style fighting game, and it definitely compares to that Mortal Kombat style game. And then this pretty awesome game right here. Now I actually really enjoy this game. So this is called Dynamite Heady, and we have this pretty cool character who has different heads that he can go ahead and switch out. So it says switch heads to match the job. Over 15 heads to choose from. Bash heavy objects with slammer head. Suck up foes with vacuum head. Stick it to your enemies with spike head. So you have to go ahead and compete through these levels using these appropriate heads. So this is definitely a wacky and fun game, and it's definitely one that's pretty interesting the more that you play and the better you get with choosing the right heads on here. So this is definitely a great addition as well. And then of course Sega didn't stop there. They went ahead and announced 2 bonus games for the Sega Genesis Mini, totaling it to 42 titles instead of the 40 that they promised. So we have Darius, which is a really great shoot 'em up style game that's definitely similar to that R-Type style, and it's a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to add that shoot 'em up style game on there, as I don't actually own it for the Sega Genesis just yet. And then they announced Tetris, which is another great game that I couldn't imagine playing it on the Sega Genesis, as I always played it on Nintendo consoles growing up. So this will definitely be a pretty interesting style game to go ahead and play on the Sega Genesis Mini, which is definitely another great bonus that they added to this console here, as they only promised 40 games, so we got 42 of them. So I'll go ahead and recap all of the rest of the games that have been announced for this system. So of course they already announced Echo the Dolphin, Castlevania Bloodlines, Space Harrier 2, Shining Force, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, Toe Jam and Earl, Comics Zone, Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast, Gunstar Heroes, Castle of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse, World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck, Thunder Force 3, Super Fantasy Zone, Shinobi 3, Streets of Rage 2, Earthworm Jim, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Contra Hardcore, Landstalker, Beyond Oasis, Ghouls and Ghosts, Alex Kidd and the Enchanted Castle, Golden Axe, Phantasy Star 4, Street Fighter 2, Special Champion Edition, Mega Man, The Wily Wars, Sonic Spinball, Vector Man, and Wonder Boy in Monster World. Of course, those games are the ones that have been announced for the Sega Genesis, which is the North American model, that will release for $79.99. And then, of course, the Sega Mega Drive will get a similar lineup, but some of the games will be different, especially with the Japanese version of the Sega Mega Drive. So I'll go ahead and post some pictures of the full 42 games that have been revealed for the Sega Mega Drive, and go ahead and show those Japanese variants. Of course, now you have it. 42 games have been revealed for the Sega Genesis Mini as opposed to the 40 that were promised. So it's definitely great to see Sega throw in a couple different surprises along the way, especially with that Retrobit 6-button controller that you can go ahead and use for the system, especially when you're playing Street Fighter. So overall, I'm pretty impressed by the game lineup, as some of these games I don't have in my collection, some I haven't even played before, and some I haven't even heard of. But of course, all of the classics, especially a lot of the ones that I remember playing growing up on the Sega Genesis, are actually going to be on the Sega Genesis Mini. So I can't wait, and I'm excited for it. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. Go ahead and check out my other videos, and stay tuned for more.